I have a pretty deep cut here. This is the uh, little background on this. If you guys know who Paul and Storm were, they're the guys who did Right Like the Wind, George R. R. Martin. At some point, they were doing a project associated with that and asked James S. A. Corey to write something with the theme of wind. And this is what we wrote. And it has, I think, our record for worst match with the tone of the project. It's called The Wind. They kept the elementary school open because the fighting hadn't reached there yet. In the next valley over, yes, bad things were happening, hard things, things their parents spoke of in murmurs or in languages the children didn't know. Yes, when the wind came from the north, it would sometimes bring the smell of smoke, but the fighting hadn't reached there yet. And the parents had jobs in offices and errands to do. And it wasn't as if the children could stop learning their numbers and letters just because there was a war. The schoolyard was dry and dirty. Mornings would find the courtyard scalloped by brown dust blown from the playground. White cracks stuttered across the leather of the swing sets. Rust touched their chains. The windows were cloudy from the tea kettle the teachers always ran to moisten the classroom air. The books in the little library were tattered and foxed. The smiling cutouts, here is Mr. Square, here is Miss Circle, were faded, their eyes worn away by years of teaching truths so simple they became invisible. The names of colors, the names of shapes, the names of numbers. For a teacher new to the school, for parents who arrived with their children in the mornings and came to collect them in the afternoons, perhaps the little building and its dusty yards were depressing, even squalid. Perhaps they were a symbol of how one had to make do with what there was, especially with the war, the fighting. To the children, though, it was a place of magic. Their laughter and delighted shrieks flew undimmed through the air. Their passion for recess burned as bright. In their collective imagination, the little yard became an island with mysterious savages hiding among the trees, a field of asteroids rife with star smugglers from across the galaxy, a beauty salon serving queens and princesses, a castle under siege by an enemy of shadows and poisoned songs. The boy who first noticed the words was one of the less well-liked. Not that he was a pariah. The other children would talk to him, laugh with him, trade sandwiches from their lunches. But if there were two teams and an odd number of children playing, it was a given that he was the one left out. Like the names of colors and shapes and numbers, it was a fact everyone knew without recalling how they learned it. In any case, the teams had to be even, and the number had been odd. And if it had not been him walking alone along the cement expanse of the courtyard and the smoke-reeking breeze that came from the north, it would have been someone else. Because he wasn't a good reader, he didn't recognize the words as words, not at first. He only found himself caught by the shapes of letters written in the dust, the curl of an O, the slant of an R. The scalloped dust moved under the wind's caress, patterns forming and being erased, the curl of an E, the tripping echo of a double L. One of the older girls noticed him squatting low over the dust, chuckling with delight, and as curiosity calls forth curiosity, she went to his side. When her shadow fell on him, he looked up with a gap-toothed grin. He pointed, and because she was 8 months older, and by the standards of the time and place, a sophisticate, she saw not letters, but words. Get down, get the fuck down, there's a sniper. Please wake up, Mama, please wake up. Oh God, Michael, not Michael. Show me your hands. I said, show me your hands. The girl stood as still as the angel on a grave while the words shifted around her, around the boy. One by one, the others came, abandoning their game to see what was happening. The dust danced around their worn sneakers. They stood in pairs and small groups, the older ones helping the younger sound out the words. The area is secure. Please don't do this. You don't have to do this. I'm bleeding. The fire's spreading. We have to go. The phrases came and they went. They told no single story, not that any of the children could follow, But the experience was familiar to them all. They were used to hearing snatches of conversations that weren't meant for them. One boy began weeping quietly, and for once none of his friends mocked his tears. A girl took another girl's hand, their thin fingers laced together as if there were some promise they could make to each other they had any power to keep. Afterward, none of the children knew when the teachers had come out, only that they had. Adult hands touched their shoulders, adult voices called them back to themselves. It was time for snack. It was time to come inside. The children didn't want to leave. They wanted to stay and read. They craved the words like a fish craves water, but they were young, and authority, as always, had its way. Inside, they sat at their desks and ate apples cut in slices with the pale flesh already turning brown and hard yellow cheese. For a time, the wind picked up, throwing handfuls of sand against the windows, but then shifted. The smell of smoke faded. When their parents came, the courtyard was a blank slate, the words being blown elsewhere for now, for other people to read, or else no one. At home, the parents were careful and circumspect in how they traded their news. After all, much of it was distressing, and there was no need to upset the children.
Yay! Thank you so much.